Welcome to you all. Welcome as we enter a new liturgical year, Advent 1, year of Matthew, I would guess. And he likes his apocalyptic, so there's going to be plenty of that around. For those of us who were adolescents, which is some of us, but adolescents in the late 70s and early 80s, the passage we're considering is guaranteed to bring memories of apocalyptic terror. Some of us will remember Larry Norman whining away, wish we'd all been ready, as he laments people disappearing in the night or up from the field in which he's working. It's a chilling passage. I'm not sure if we want to be chilled. I'm going to be wanting to see if there is a better way to get through this passage that Larry Norman had to offer. Damon, you will have some background. Eddie, welcome. And Kara, for the first time, lovely to have you from where I used to be in the centre. Don't tell Damon this, but the centre of Central Otago. Nice to have you all. Damon, some background.
Oh, well, thanks, Michael. I want to begin just by reiterating what you've said, that it is the first Sunday in Advent, and that churches around the diocese and across the world will be lighting the first of the Advent candles and singing some of those wonderful Advent hymns like Lo He Comes with Clouds Descending and Come, O Come, Emmanuel. And one of my favourites, written by Mark Wilson, from, of course, Wakatipu. He is born in us again, like the warmth of the summer sun, he comes. But not only is it the beginning of Advent, it's also the start of, it is the start of the church's year. And what's really interesting is we begin the new church year not with the trumpets of Easter, nor with the softness of Christmas Eve, nor the winds of Pentecost, but as someone said, but with the shadows of despair and war and sorrow and hate. And those who have read the full part of this particular passage, the full chapter, will know all those things feature in it. And in the midst of it all, during Advent, we light the candles of hope and peace and joy and love. We also turn in the Revised Common Lectionary to a new gospel. Michael, you've mentioned this already. It's year A. It's the Gospel of Matthew. But we turn not to the beginning, as one might suspect or expect at the beginning of a new season, but towards the end, to chapter 24. And there Jesus is nearing the end of his public ministry. And this chapter has a litany of signs that speak of the current age coming to an end. And so the wider context is the destruction of the temple and the suffering that followed. The language is vivid and poetic and confronting and hope-filled. It's apocalyptic literature, a word that refers to an unveiling or a revealing. And you have the echoes of some of the prophets of old that feature in it. And if there's a key message that comes through this text, it's that echo of being ready.
All right. I wish we'd all been ready. Thank you so much, Damon, for a very good intro to this. Let's get straight into it and find basically what we find challenging. And Eddie, can you tell me what's challenging here?
Yeah, it's a pretty challenging passage. I actually, when this came through, I happened to be reading this book, which is called Everything Must Go, about the various ways we talk about the end of the world, which is a bit unnerving. But I mean, I guess the challenge is like, how do you read a passage like this and like understand the idea of the apocalypse in general? And I think there's two temptations that we can get pulled into. One is like that we just kind of discount it, like we sort of say, look, everything's going to keep being fine. This is just nonsense. And the other side is like, I think recently there was like a TikTok viral trend of people predicting the rapture, and you can get kind of crazy when you read this kind of reading as well. So I guess it's about like just pausing and reading it carefully and taking note of what's like a middle way, like how can we understand this in a way which is encouraging? I think that's the challenge.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Cara, for you, what's challenging?
I'd also agree with Edward. The challenge for me was actually my response to the text. It brought to mind a number of ways where I've seen the text be misused, a whole bunch of left behind and just things that cause one's heart to race. And yeah, I just found my own history with the text to be a hindrance and a block, but it's been a delight to actually get into it and move beyond that. especially like you said, Damon, given that this is the start of Advent, and that we're actually preparing and waiting for something. Yeah.
And I think that personal response is so important. So thanks for putting that out there straight away. Damon, personally challenging?
Well, you stole my thunder, really, because I also grew up in the 70s and 80s. And the first thing I thought of when I looked at this passage was the Larry Norman song, I Wish We'd All Been Ready. And I actually Googled it and listened to it again. And those words, two men walking up a hill, one disappears and one's left standing still. I wish we'd all been ready. There's no time to change your mind. The sun has come and you've been left behind. I mean, it's a very powerful and evocative song. But I kind of think also quite unhelpful too. And so I think the challenge for me, it's about letting go of unhelpful theology and moving beyond judgment and fear to the God whose nature is to be with us, who comes to us as love.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing love into the center of this. Let's talk then, in the midst of this opening that you've given us, that we're all looking for, about good news. Kara, what's good news?
I would say the good news for me when I look at the text was where it says, as in the days of Noah. So, this idea of there is an ark, there is a means of salvation and grace that God has provided. And for us today, the good news is the fact that the church is the ark of that salvation, carrying us through this chaotic, dark, stormy life. And it carries us through the waters, and there is salvation. And so I think that was wonderful news in that day. The ark would have been obvious and visible. They would have seen it constructed and being built. There would have been an invitation, I imagine, as they discussed with Noah what he's doing. And yet it was Noah and his family that entered it. And so the good news is there is a church and there is an ark of salvation, a means for redemption.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that notion, and we need to be reminded of it year after year that there is this hope, there is this ark, there is this constant offer of
Mm.
redemption. Eddie,
Good news, you reckon?
I reckon.
I guess like I'm the son of two English teachers, and so I tend to read things quite metaphorically and look for things like thematically. And in this text, it seems like there's kind of two things. Well, there's lots of things happening, but there's like crisis, and then there's like people being called out. And for
Mm.
me, that's the tension that runs through the whole gospel is in a time of crisis, God calls faithful people out, and that looks like leaving the world behind. And that's really good news because it actually means that you just have to stay faithful and you'll be called upon in a crisis. And we're in a crisis time right now. And so that's when the work starts to happen. So, I think that's good news.
It is good news, and there are people around, and we do hear voices that are speaking sanity into some of the insanity that goes on around us, or is going on around us at the moment. So Damon, where do you begin to find good news here?
Yeah, I'm really pleased that Kara picked up the idea of the story of Noah too. And one of the things that is certainly true in that story is that story is not just about the individual being saved, but the act of God is for all of creation, for the whole universe. And I think when we consider what the message of this text is, what the message of the gospel, it's for not just for us, but for everyone, for everything, for the whole of the universe. And I'm reminded Bernard of Clairvaux talked about there being three advents. The first being the incarnation, the birth of Jesus at Christmas. The second being the parousia, the coming of Christ at the end of time. And then he talked about the everyday arrival of Jesus. And I just love that concept, that concept of everyday God is coming to us, and our God is the one who comes into the world and is coming into the world constantly. And we just need to be awake, to be alert, to be ready, to be attentive to that presence, which is always happening, is always around us.
Being attentive to the presence. The presence is very powerful. Okay, thank you. Let's apply all this. Eddie, is there a so what to be found here?
I'm just sitting here like there's a few so what's and I guess I'll just stick with where I've been and I guess it's around we don't need to figure this stuff out. I think there's a real temptation us trying to figure out a system or a set of rules or a moral position or an ethical position or a way out of a crisis or whatever it is. And actually, you just need to be faithful, and that's actually about it. And that's a hard place to sit sometimes because we like to figure things out. But if we can just let go of those thoughts in our head and just let things be, then we'll get through whatever we're going through in any moment. And I think
And it's a
that's the main
hard
thing.
place to sit, not only when there's kind of global apocalyptic issues, but also when there are apocalypses in the lives of people that we love or in our
Yeah,
own lives. So
yeah.
yeah, I like that. Thank you. Let's ask you, Damon, if you can do a bit of so what.
Yeah, I mean, I came across a quote in a commentary from the Salt Project, and it said it's worth remembering this deep poetry. As the Christian New Year begins, we join hands and enter the darkness, actively waiting, singing and praying anew for God's light to overwhelm the world. And I think it just picks up some of those things that Edie's talking about. That there are the shadows of despair and destruction all around us, and we are invited to be part of the repairing of the world, little by little, in those small acts, those everyday acts.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm reminded again that, in Dante's hell above the door is abandon hope, all ye who enter there. And we're invited not to abandon
Yeah.
hope. Kara, a final word on a so what?
Yeah, the so what that I received was that we are to live as an Advent people, a people anticipating and expecting the return of Christ, not with fear of judgments, but as people of peace who proclaim God's redemption and salvation and act as sign points to that.
It's a challenge. We might be back to the start again, but it's absolutely right. So thank you. And thank all of you for helping kick off what's a liturgical year. But obviously, as we head towards the end of the calendar year, with great messages of Christ hope. Thanks for joining me, Damon, Eddie, Kara. Thanks for being on board.